Okay, welcome back to my session on interfaces using blueprints. This is a way of getting our blueprints to talk to each other, and it's slightly better than the previous example where we were using functions. So we're going to take our rotating block, the original one, and we're going to duplicate it just for the purposes of this demonstration. So we'll call it rotating block underscore interface. The other thing we need to do is to create the actual interface itself, which can be found in the blueprint section of when you right click in the content browser, and it gives the option of making a new blueprint interface. Now the interface itself we're going to call pt underscore interface, but you can call it as you need really for your project. You may create several of these, for example, and if you double click you'll find that it looks a lot like the standard event graph that you get in a usual blueprint, except you'll see it says read-only and interface at the bottom. That means that you don't actually provide, and it won't let you do any of the calculations or any of the flows or manipulation of values and variables and so on. It just gives you a set of functions and a set of inputs and outputs that you can give to those functions. So let's give a function name. In this case we'll call it turn on or off, and the input will be our Boolean value as to whether it is either on or off. So 1 would be on and 0 would be off, ticked or unticked. Make sure we spell that correctly. You need to compile this before you use it, and it's a good idea to also save it as well. So it's just given us a function name and a value that is passed to that function. So now let's add it to our interface. So we've got the rotating block interface, and first thing we need to do is add this interface here into our blueprint. Now you do this in the class settings, and you'll find here there's this interfaces section. So click class settings there, the interface section, there's a button called add. Now for some reason my laptop misbehaves a bit with this menu, so bear with me, but you just need to click add. It would usually give you a drop down menu. For me it will give me, hopefully at least, it should give me a set of pixels to click on, which it usually does. There we are. And you're looking for the one called bp underscore interface, and once you've added that you'll see that it's been added to your implemented interfaces there. So just do that on the add button and you should just get a nice drop down list hopefully. Once you've added that, compile it again just to make sure your blueprint is up to date, and you should then be able to right click and select the event turn on or off that we had in our interface. So click that and you'll see it creates an event. So basically when our blueprint receive this message called turn on or off, it will be passed a value as to whether it's going to be on or off, and we can then set our own internal value to be the same as the value that's passed to us, like so. Obviously we could also do other things like we did previously. For example, we could print a message, or we could play a sound. Oops. Play a sound there, link to our cube. We'll pick a sound from this list as well. So we use this one there. So we need to add our rotating interface. We'll put it here. Let's delete a couple of the others from earlier. that we don't need anymore. This is our rotating interface. We'll just position it near to our player, and we've already got a trigger volume set up from previously over there. So if we open our level blueprint, you'll see that I've just cleaned it up a little bit. So we're just left with these trigger overlap events, and if we create a reference to our trigger box here, sorry, to our rotating block, and you notice this is the interface version, then we should be able to call our function turn on, turn off. Now be careful you choose the correct version of this. The one that we want to pick is the I believe it's the interface call, that one there, and if we overlap we're going to turn it on. Let's just check that this works. So we walk up to the block, it turns on, that's fine. And obviously we could have it so that it stops when we walk out of the level as well. Now you notice it says target is BP_interface. That means it's not specifically linked to our rotating block, which means we could have other things that also implement this on-off interface. Oops. Let's just check we set the value to be turned off there. There we are, turn it off. So we can turn it on and we can turn it off. Now you notice it plays the same sound in this example. That's because we're just using a general function called turn on or off. So you could stick a branch here to play a different sound. If you wanted to. So if it's on, it could be that one, and if it's off, you could get it to play a different sound. Forgot to link up the condition. There we are. That's it. It should play a different sound now. There we are. So that's working as expected. Now the good thing about this one is that it will let us change the reference in our level blueprint to something else. So as before, when we used functions, those functions were kind of hard linked to the actual function name. If we want to create an entirely new, let's just do a save all. If we want to create an entirely new rotating thing that does something completely different, in this case we'll just duplicate this one, but it could be something entirely different. So we'll do the rotating cone again like we did in the previous example. I may just be able to swap the mesh, there we are, to something else. And our event graph could be different as well. Okay, so this still has the interface that we added earlier, but this could be an entirely different blueprint that you also add the interface to. So this time if we want to swap our rotating block for our cone, we should just be able to relink the targets. In fact, you can link a couple of targets like this. Let's see if that works. See, they both start spinning. So you can see the benefit of using an interface, whereas there's no way of doing that using a standard function. With interfaces, you can just give each object its own generic interface based off of a blueprint interface class there, and it's much more flexible, much more powerful system, and I'll show you a few more examples of that in subsequent videos.